My father was not a very warm and caring father when my siblings and I, all in our 20s now, were young. I'm the youngest and I was only 8 when we all found out he was having an affair with a woman he worked with. The affair only came out because the affair partner grew tired of our father staying married to Mom and showed no signs of being willing to divorce Mom for her. So she took measures into her own hands and confronted Mom with the truth. My siblings and I were all home at the time. It blindsided my mom significantly because while she knew our father worked a lot, he had always been attentive as a spouse to her, and he could play pretend that he was invested in his kids. My mom's marriage to him fell apart, and she moved out of his house with us, and we started anew. My father fought for shared custody. I often wonder if this was to punish her or us, because it's not like he had any role in our lives, but he was awarded shared custody. His affair partner threw herself into the role of stepmom. She acted like she was some new person with no bad history with us and our family. She even ignored that she destroyed our mom's heart right before us. We didn't like her, and within 2 years she told our father she no longer wanted us around because all we did was bully her and made her feel like she was some unimportant mistake he made. She was also bothered by the fact that none of us would acknowledge her as our father's wife or as our stepmom. We always said she was our father's affair partner when asked. This wasn't something she wanted following her around or thrown in her face a lot. So we had no contact with our father for over a decade. I'm 22 now. Recently, the affair partner contacted us to inform us that our father had suffered several health complications and is now ill and disabled. My oldest brother confirmed that this was true and knows which hospital he's in. None of us had any interest in seeing him, and we expressed this, though not to her, to our father's sister. His affair partner decided my siblings would never give in, but she knew a much younger me had hoped for a better relationship with my dad, and she tried to say she couldn't care for him and the 4 young children that they have under the age of 7, and that my family needs me. I told her that they were not my family and that she married him, so she was responsible for caring for him now that he couldn't care for himself. And I told her I would not help and didn't care how tough it was for them. Her response was full of anger, but she, in not so many words, called me an idiot. I ignored her, but she again insulted me and claimed that I was sick and cruel for my stance. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your dad chose to be crappy to you and your family, and his affair partner chose to marry him. She didn't want his kids around, and he obliged. She wanted him, and now that things are hard, she wants his kids back in his life. What's that whole in sickness and in health marriage thing that she seems to have forgotten about? This is karma in action. She's reaping what she sowed. She destroyed your mother and your family. You owe her nothing. I'm not too fond of the idea of karma, but she was the one who told the kids she was the affair partner. Of course, that's all the kids would think of her after she made that impression. This was a direct consequence of her actions, and she doesn't even think she did anything wrong. Who would have guessed that nobody would have sympathy for her? Oh, she still doesn't want his kids around. She wants the heavy lifting and grunt work they'll provide so she can continue to enjoy her life. Keep away from her. Do not let her convince you to support her kids because they're your younger siblings and family helps family. Exactly, OP. She wants something from you, whether money or someone to care for her husband and or kids. She's considering raising kids on a single income with finances in a bleak state since medical issues are so expensive. If it were, I want to give his other kids a chance to reconnect. She wouldn't be raving at you. She'd just let it go. But she wants something from you that you have no obligation to give, given how they both treated you. You are free to block any contact from her if that helps. She wanted them all to herself, and now she has them. All to herself. My ex-husband and I have a nearly adult son who began driving and got his car a little over a year ago. He's had a good, clean record so far, with no accidents. Early this week, however, he had a minor road rage incident which I'm describing as I saw on my son's dash cam footage. He was in a left turn lane at a red light behind two other cars. The light turned green, but the car in the front didn't move. The car in front of my son and my son leaned on their horn, but they still didn't move. They blared their horns nonstop for 15 seconds, but the car still didn't move. The light turned red, and just afterward, the car in front ran the red light and made a U-turn. As the car passed him in the opposite lane, my son flipped off the driver and screamed, "Stupid witch!" at the top of his lungs out the window at the driver, a woman who looked to be in her 60s or 70s. That intersection has long lights, so my son had to wait a long time for the next green light. Coincidentally, this woman lives in the same condo complex as my husband and son, even though neither claimed to have ever met or recognized her, but she recognized my son in his car. She confronted my ex-husband about it a couple of days afterward. She made my son's behavior sound a lot worse than it was. She said my son threatened and intimidated her, and also downplayed her actions. She said she made a tiny driving mistake and didn't give any more details beyond that. My ex looked at my son's dash cam footage and saw the whole incident. Though he agreed it wasn't as bad as she made it sound, he was still angry at my son. He made him apologize and told him he'd be taking away his keys for a whole week, meaning he'd have to walk to school and everywhere else. He made a big deal about not wanting his son disrespecting women and his elders or road raging. I thought his punishment was way too harsh, considering the circumstances. I had a long conversation with my ex the day after he made the punishment, clarified how I felt, and demanded he give him his keys back. He stood his ground at first, but eventually and very reluctantly gave in, since I'm the parent he spends the most time with, and thus the one who has the ultimate veto power. My ex seemed unhappy about our son getting out of his punishment. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, especially if she's lying, adding stuff to make it sound worse. She shouldn't even be on the road. I don't care how considerate anyone thinks they are. Everyone gets road rage at one point in time. His actions were normal. Yes, he should be talked to. And since she lives near, yes, an apology. But honestly, it's not that big of a deal. Anyone who denies this is lying. No one is Ned Flanders all the time while driving. I'm going with you are the idiot. The old lady isn't important here. Yeah, she was a jerk and a liar, but who cares? You aren't her parent. Instead, this is about your son's behavior. You have very little time to teach him about the consequences of his actions, and it's clear you haven't done a good enough job yet if he's flying off the handle and screaming obscenities at people because he had to wait a few minutes. And that's what we're talking about here, waiting for one more turn cycle, even at a long light. That was the entirety of his inconvenience. Your ex's plan was to take his car privileges for a week, so he realized this was serious. Yours was to teach your son that he can do what he wants, and mommy will ensure he doesn't face consequences. That's a bad lesson. Now maybe there's more context here, where walking to school is a considerable hardship or something, but assuming it's less than an hour walk each way, yeah, I don't see the issue. Sucks your ex caved when being a good parent. 2 days ago, my 21 female, boyfriend 23, had his friends over. I knew they were coming since he told me the night before. It was really warm, surprisingly, and all I was wearing was a sports bra, sorta low cut, and kinda tight shorts. I sat on the couch next to my boyfriend for a little while as they played some games on the TV, and then I went to get some lunch. By the time I finished eating, they had left, and my boyfriend blew up at me. He said I was dressed like that for attention, and I made all his friends stare at me. I knew what I was doing, and I should have covered up as soon as I saw them. He stormed out, and he's barely spoken to me since he came home. Am I the idiot? Should I have worn something less revealing? Everyone's the idiot here. Your man for not speaking his concerns instead of yelling. But girl, you knew the day before they were coming. Let's be honest. If your friend came over half naked and he was looking, you would be angry. I understand if you were working out, It made sense for you to wear that. Was it hard to throw a shirt on top before the friends arrived, and you could have just taken it right back off before they left? I'm not saying you have to dress that way for them, but as I stated earlier, if the situation were reversed, I'm sure you would be angry. I would have stayed in the other room until they were done hanging out. She was wearing a sports bra and what sounds like bike shorts, in what I'm presuming is her own home. This outfit is ridiculously comfortable, and being on the way to a workout is not a requirement for wearing it. If her boyfriend's friends can't control themselves from gawking at a girl in a sports bra and bike shorts, that's their fault, not hers. Maybe they weren't gawking. Maybe they were uncomfortable. It isn't just about OP's comfort in her home, but the guest comfort as well, especially since she knew that company was coming. If the roles were reversed and he was wearing just basketball shorts while she had guests over, people might not be taking the same side as, wear what you want in your home. Yeah, wearing appropriate clothing is important for the place. I couldn't imagine wearing a bra if my husband's friends came over. If someone was wearing a one-piece bathing suit at Target, that would be pretty weird too. I dress like an intoxicated floozy most of the time at home, but things change when there's a guest. It's wild. While I do agree in this situation, OP most likely is not the idiot. People here almost always default to completely independent autonomy in situations where that isn't even an entirely appropriate approach. The real issue in this situation is that the boyfriend is still too hot under the collar to discuss this. It's an opportunity to figure out what each other's boundaries and ideas about what is and isn't appropriate behavior are. You may find out that you just aren't as compatible as you thought, and that's fine too. OP, it sounds like you guys have different feelings about modesty. You guys should have a very honest discussion about how you both feel. My husband, 58, and I, 56 female, host all our kids and their families for the holiday season. This has been so since they moved away for different reasons, and we use this as a way to bond with them and for them to see each other. My sons, Jack, 32, and Harry, 35, visit us every year, and we have a great time together. My daughter, Alice, 31, lives about an hour away from us by plane with her family. This includes her wife, Vanessa, 35, and their 2 kids, a young grammar school-age son and preschool daughter. They visit us on my husband's birthday or mine if they can. They have never been with us for the holidays since they got together 10 years ago. The reason for this is that Vanessa is a surgeon, and she always has to work, including the holidays. This year I invited them again, and Alice declined the invitation for the very same reason as every year. I suggested that the kids were older now, and maybe Alice could fly out alone with them and stay with us for a few days while Vanessa kept on with her work. Alice told me there was no way she would spend the holidays away from her wife. I told her how her kids were missing out on the chance to spend time with their cousins, and I'm sure they'd have fun if they came over. She told me they plan to spend time with Vanessa's family because they live in the same city. I may be an idiot because I again told her it wouldn't hurt anyone if she came over just a few days, and I said I was sure Vanessa could handle that. She got mad at me this time and said she only wanted to be with Vanessa and the kids and that they used this time to bond as a family. She also called me pushy and selfish for not understanding where she was coming from and said I was being unreasonable by asking her to abandon her wife during the holidays. My husband and Jack are on my side, but Harry thinks we went too far with the insisting. So, am I the idiot? You are the idiot. First, an hour by plane is closer to 5 or 6 hours travel time after dealing with all the airport BS. Secondly, you expect her to travel at the most expensive, unpredictable, busiest time of the year. But mostly, the issue is that you're demanding she abandon her wife over the holidays. Think of how you would feel if your husband took the kids and left you alone for Christmas. Even if you had somewhere to go, you would be heartbroken that he did that to you. You asked and your daughter said no. She's an adult, and you need to respect that. All you're doing is driving her away. Excellent point. Plus, air travel at holidays just blows. I did it for years. It's awful. We have a firm no travel at holidays rule, and we love it. OP needs to rethink how she approaches her daughter and daughter's family, as she comes off as a dismissive and marginalizing their family. Why don't you, your husband, your sons, and their families rent a place where Alice and Vanessa live so you can spend Christmas with them? Vanessa isn't at the point in her career where she gets enough time off at Christmas that traveling is practical. So you need to decide what's more important, spending Christmas in your home or with your whole family. On top of all of this, you aren't even thinking about the kids. They're young, the peak of believing in the magic of Christmas. They want to wake up on Christmas morning and see that Santa has come and brought them gifts. They want to open presents from their mom and spend time as a nuclear family. You remind me of my mother-in-law. I've vowed never to be like my mother-in-law. Try to do better. My cousin and I are both seniors in high school and live in different states. My family went to her state for a wedding, which is when this whole thing blew up. At the wedding, her parents bragged to everyone that she was in the top 10 of her class. This didn't bother me until they started asking the cousins who were high school age what their rank was. I was very annoyed because I am in the middle of my class, but I go to one of the top high schools in my state. It's so good that it's well known that the top 10 usually go to Ivy League schools. Anyway, I tried to ignore them, but eventually, her father came to our table to talk to my parents. Of course, he brought up her top 10 standings, then turned to me and asked mine. I answered I didn't know, which made him laugh, and he told me that he bet it was not the top 25%, or else I would know. I was about to say something, but my mom pinched my thigh hard to where I had to look at her. The entire thing put me in a bad mood for the rest of the night. When we got back to our hotel, I spent the night looking up our high school and found many articles about how bad our school district is. I found an article that stated fewer than 10 students in her entire school were proficient at math. I laughed hard, saved those articles, and then went to sleep. The next day at family dinner, almost everyone was there when her parents started up with it again. I pulled up some example SAT math questions and challenged her to complete them. The short of it is she didn't get any right. Her parents yelled at my parents yelled at me, and dinner was ruined. She later texted in our cousin's group chat that I was an idiot for putting her on the spot, and I replied that it's easy being in the top 10 when everyone else is an idiot. We're home now, and my parents want me to smooth things over by apologizing to the rest of the family, and specifically to my cousin for putting her on the spot. I don't want to, but Dad told me that Grandpa will ban us from the Christmas gathering unless I do. I don't want to. Everyone's the idiot here, except your cousin. It was her parents bragging, not her. Her parents suck for bringing you into it, and they could have just been proud of their daughter without comparing her to anyone. Your parents suck for not defending you and for wanting you to take insults quietly. You suck for embarrassing your cousin for what her parents did. You suck the least out of the three, since you were only defending yourself, but how you did it wasn't good. You could have just compared the schools instead. You could have given the bragging parents the sample math questions. Will the uncle be made to apologize too? Because from what I read here, he, a grown adult, bullied every kid he came into contact with about their math performance. OP, on the other hand, is a teenager who stood up for himself. Maybe the uncle shouldn't dish it out in the first place. Honestly, every single adult involved owes every cousin subjected to this an apology for not stepping in. If one of my family members started doing this, I would burn every single bridge to put it to a stop and defend the kids. OP, here's an example of the apology you could give. I'm sorry your parents were wrongly bragging about your supposed mathematical ability, and that simply bringing an example question out has caused you and your parents such mortifying embarrassment. I hope we can all learn from this to enjoy our successes rather than turn it into a competition. I like people being humbled and adore a bit of pettiness, so you are not the idiot.